Good morning. This is I'm Tom Hazlitt. I'm going to be interviewing a Vietnam vet whose name is Richard Carlson.
Yeah, Swede.
Swede.
I'm half Swedish.
I'm with the Bellevue University Veterans Program, and we're here to interview. Actually, tell me about your background, where you were born, how you grew up, your family life, siblings, anywhere.
Okay, I was born in a farming family. In fact, when I got done with the service, my folks moved out of the house I was brought home from the hospital there till I was 40 years old. Same house, same farm, same place. Anyway, oldest of 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl 16 years younger than me. Anyway, I started working at a ripe old age, putting in 10-hour days at 8 years old. Because I was the oldest. I had dad needed help. I remember at 8 years old, went out and milked 7 cows by hand by myself. And those old cows pinched me, and so I learned to work. And I thought my dad was crazy. He said, well, they can take everything away from you, but you learn to work, they can't take that away. I thought, how hard is it to work, you know? So that's the way I was raised. We worked and went to church. Very spiritual family. We never went, no vacation. First vacation I went on is when I graduated from high school. They took me down to Arkansas, see my rich uncle. But anyway, I was never more than 40 miles from home for the first 18 years of my life. So 9 miles to town, and we milked cows and had chickens. Every Saturday night, we'd have fill the car up with case eggs and cream, and they'd go to the deal and they'd get how much, whatever. Mama, how much money you need for groceries? Well, I need coffee. Mom raised everything from the garden. We had 500 chickens and sexed them, and usually had 250 roosters. They froze, so we never bought any meat. We'd always have steaks and ate very good, worked very hard, and as of 6 years old, I was at the end of the line plucking the pin feathers. So that was my job. But anyway, so we learned to work and then we'd have 5-acre potato patch. And had diesel fuel kerosene in a jar, and I'd have to walk up and down the line picking potato bugs off and throw them in there. And there'd be just as many the next day, but that was my job, to keep the potato patch fat. Anyway, so very shielded life, church, anyway. Graduated from high school, flunked the first grade. I graduated in May, during 19 in June, and I got 4A anyway. And that, I went to the Air Guard, they were full, and they had one opening in the Army Guard, and that was a medic, the last opening. So I went to meetings till in February. I went basic training down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and then did 9 weeks training there, and very poor in school, going back to school. Anyway, if I got a D, I was doing good. Anyway, the Army was good for me. I ran under a 5-minute mile with combat boots. I did 100 bars fastest. One guy was faster than me, but he was built like a monkey. He had long arms and dangled on the ground, but he could outdo me in the bars. You know what bars are?
No.
They were 100 bars, go back and forth in so many minutes. Go, turn around. So that's what you did. One of the deal, and throwing a grenade, and then low crawled under concertina wire. And they said you could stand up and jump up and down, but you think they're shooting right over your head. So you did that, and so I maxed I did perfect in that, and give me confidence. So when I went to do medical training, I tried writing things down. I couldn't do it, so I just sat and listened. And I learned that I had a very good memory. I remembered when I was in Vietnam, I think a higher power, God, brought that to my mind, that like a tracheotomy. Just told me one time, I remembered what to do. Saved a guy, put a bamboo deal right under here and jammed it in his throat. What to do when you had a belly wound, collected all the intestines and put it in a big bag, and in any parts, other parts, fingers, you put them in a bag, put them with there. Sometimes they could put them back on, sometimes they couldn't. But anyway, it was, anyway, so that's, I remembered all that stuff when I got into the field. Anyway, I went home, rented a quarter of land, bought a tractor, and I was going to start farming. Then in April of '68, they activated our guard unit, and we went over to Colorado Springs. As a whole company, we went to Colorado Springs. So we were just, we spent 9 months there. Some people got, but us medics, every one of us, I think every one of us went to Vietnam, because they're short of medics in Vietnam. They were getting wounded and shot up so bad, killed. So I got a 30-day leave right after Christmas, went there, and I left Omaha. It was like 10 below, 10, 15 below. Within 5 days, I was in Vietnam, 100-degree temperature, 100% humidity, wearing winter fatigues, and had a 60-pound ruck. And they opened the door of our commercial jet, it was air conditioned, and you hit the smell. The whole town smells like a toilet. Just stinks. Anyway, we were going along. Anyway, we had to walk 2 miles, and used to below zero weather and humidity, people were passing out. There was like 50, 60 of us. So one guy passed out, couldn't make it. They called a medic on him. But anyway, we got there. They didn't give us any light clothes for a day. We sat there in winter clothes, sat on a rucksack. Anyway, on the way over, this mama son was walking with us, and she squatted right beside us and took a dump right in front of us with all 50 GIs. And wow, this country boy is going into something that he'd never experienced before in his life. Anyway, so we went there, and we spent next week any places ducking KP, guard duty, trying to get out of stuff, waiting for our orders, Anyway, they sent me out to a MASH unit. There's a base unit where medics just get acclimated. You're supposed to spend 3 months in a base unit, getting used to the blood and guts and all that stuff. Anyway, 2 days later, I got my orders to go out to the field. Anyway, I went out. They sort of farmed us medics wherever they needed us. Anyway, this wasn't the unit I spent most of my time with. Anyway, I landed. This guy looked at me, and I must have been really, really scared. You know, he'd come up to me and call me Doc. Stick with me, and I'll keep you alive. So I followed him around like a puppy. Anyway, we were out going across the rice paddy, and anyway, about 11, 12 o'clock, this little kid come running towards me. And I said, hollered the guy's name, "What's this kid running towards me?" He turned around and shot him. Right? This is the first day I was out in the field. Anyway, I said, "What do you do that for?" And then pursued, boom, boom. He had a grenade in each hand. So he was going to put that in my back pocket. So anyway, so later on that week, I knew this guy. I remembered, the symptoms of having malaria, and he was sick. Anyway, my CO, not my CO that I spent, he begged me to keep him out there, and we had a fight, and that guy about died. Anyway, this is the only time I had a special ride in a helicopter. Helicopter come out. "Where's Doc Carlson?" So I went on, rode all by myself. Anyway, I landed at the MASH unit. One doctor screaming in this ear, one doctor screaming in my other ear. You can override a 5-star general if you think your people are sick. So that put pressure on me. And all the guys knew that. They knew I had the power to send them back. So that put pressure. And I was making PFC pay. It was stateside, it was $120 a month. Vietnam was $450 a month. So I was making big bucks. So, but I only spent, the 3 months I was there, spent $25 the whole 3 months. And I was going to, week I was going to get wounded, I was going to go order a Canary Yellow Charger, 69, them are sharp cars. And I was going to, figured it cost $4,200. And I figured I sent all my paycheck there, and I could pick it up at San Francisco and drive it home after 10 months. But that didn't happen. Anyway, so I was doing there, and then so I got the pressure. And then they transferred me to this other unit closer to the North Vietnam and closer to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They called, as I stayed there 3 months, they called me the old man. They never had a medic last over a month. I stayed there 3.5 months. They were always taking casualties.
Can you go back to the story on the airplane trip over?
Yeah.
You were telling me the story, you were talking to a older Vietnam vet who sat down with you and told you the difference between a good medic and a bad medic.
Okay. When it was on the airplane ride over. They called them reception stations. They brought the old Vietnam vets and the new ones. So we all sit together all day long doing nothing. They would tell war stories, and they'd tell the stories about good medic got shot here and the bad medic got shot here. I verbally saw this one lieutenant in that first group I was with was a gun hole, made him stand an inspection. He had a grenade land in his tent. One of the guys killed him. So this, woohoo, But I was glad to get out of the unit. The next unit, I found two Christian guys, Steve Carlson and Mike Thompson, and we had good times talking and everything. And Steve was an old guy, about 28 years old, and Mike was 19, and I was 20, 21. So anyway, we had a good time. We were all farm boys. He loved Oliver's, and I loved John Deere's. Steve loved John Deere's, and I loved International. So we had a good time talking and had a good time. There's good times in Vietnam. You get close. Anyway, my second unit was so much better than the first one. The second one were more close-knit. They more Like, I used to have to run around to help guys, and I'd say, Doc's coming, and they'd cover for me so I could, and I learned to low crawl, get to wounded people, and I did about 30 of them, 30 wounded guys, my 3.5 months, and then this one guy did this, and anyway, we were about, I don't know, not every day, but it seemed like every other day, we landed under fire. We'd load up in a bunch of helicopters, and they'd land us in a hot LZ, where they know there was North Vietnamese, and they land us in there, and then we'd shoot, we'd do that. Anyway, that's why I had so many casualties, because we had to land so many times under fire, bringing us into a hot LZ. They'd shoot rockets in there, and then we'd both go in there and clean up the riffraff. Anyway, we took this, there's another story. When we took this hill during this time, we took this high hill 2 or 3 times and took casualties every time. Anyway, we run this hill, and all of a sudden there's bing, 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 and I knew that was something shooting at me. Anyway, I turned around, it's tracers. That was friendly fire. Anyway, a guy, when they're shooting machine gun, they just turn to the side and they follow every fourth or fifth shell as a tracer, so that's how they aim it. Anyway, when they shoot a 60 machine gun, it don't go straight, it goes like this, sort of in a half moon. And I hit the ground, and it was hitting so close, filled my eyes full of dirt. And the lieutenant from me, about this far, about 2 or 3 feet away from me, got hit in the spleen. And my eyes are full of dirt, and I hollered for a helicopter, and I was trying to clean the dirt out of my eyes and trying to get my bandages out, and I thought I lost him, but he never got malaria. If he did, he died. But anyway, so that's one of the experiences, and I think the worst experience outside of Ralph dying in my arms is I don't know why, I was behind the crazy guy. You know what the crazy guy was?
No.
The guy that went in the tunnels, put a knife in his mouth, and a grade in the hand, and a 45 in the other hand, and then he pulled the pin because he just let it loose on the grenade. So the pin was out of the grenade. So he'd go in there into the tunnels. They call them tunnel rats. And they would go in and try to get the Viet Cong coming out, because we were right along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. They had all kinds of tunnels. Anyway, I was following the crazy dude, and he was there 11 months. So he was good. He'd done that for 11 months, so that's sort of a record for a guy being alive that long. But anyway, I was following him, and we were being really quiet for a change. Anyway, we come around this curve. There was 3 North Vietnamese, we called them dinks, and they were making booby traps for us. Anyway, he did a John Wayne, brought his M16 up to his waist and sprayed him, and then he jumped this way. Then I brought up my M6 gun, and I sprayed that guy, and then he got another clip in, and he sprayed the 3rd guy, so we killed him. They were pulling grenades on us, but I remember him, I was just sitting there, I can't remember having my M16 up there. All I could see him falling apart in front of me, the guy, and I blocked out shooting him, but they told me I killed that guy. Anyway, I was sitting along the edge of the path, my head between my legs, just really shook, because I was raised, life is precious, and I thought, as a medic, I would never have to kill a guy. You know, when you're shooting into the trees, you don't know if you're hitting anybody. But when you're 10 feet apart and you just see it happen, that's a whole other story. Anyway, guys, they all crawled over and, yeah, you want his gun? No, I don't want that. Well, you want his billfold. He threw the billfold towards me. And I opened it up, and there's a picture of his wife and 2 kids. And I just killed a guy that had a family. And that was one of the bad days. They carried me off. It took me, my CO come and talk to me. Doc, you got to get yourself together because we need you. Told me to talk that afternoon. He said, you got to get together. And anyway, so as a medic, I was responsible. We were supposed to have 35 guys, but we were never fully manned. Probably 28 at the most because we were always getting them wounded. But I was responsible for the health. So my CO told me, you need to make sure they take their salt tablets every morning. And then we had some guys that thought old guys about 33 years old, they volunteered for Vietnam and thought they were really had a lot of, weren't scared of nothing. Anyway, I hated those guys. They never helped me out in a firefight. They were sitting there just scared like this, scared because they were trying to prove that they were the guy that didn't want to be there. I trusted him with my life a whole lot better. They took it. They were under fire. They started firing, and I didn't know when I went over when they hollered for a medic, would I get up, go running, try to help them. Like these World War II and Vietnam, they have to run. I was always running around helping people, and they were always covering for me. But anyway, I found out, I didn't think about it. Then after I had something like that happen, I'd go out, beat on a tree for a while, and the frustration of it all. Anyway, come along, and the 27th of May, it was Memorial Day week. I don't know if it was Memorial Day, but it was Memorial Day week. We were down in a creek about in 2 foot of water. We were going across, and then they heard, and we hit. I got down behind a rock, and he said, Crawley's hit. So I low crawled up the hill, about like that, not a straight up and down, but pretty steep. And I was doing there, and the guy said, I think he's hit bad. I really don't know if he's alive. Anyway, I low crawled up there, and he was alive yet. And I said, Ralph, are you ready for your maker? And then I had this arm around him, and I could see his legs were blowed off. He didn't have any legs. And I was just going to pull him down behind this big rock, and then the Dink or North Vietnamese opened up on me, and most of the shells hit him, but this arm got hit here. Anyway, I rolled, and I left Ralph up there. I couldn't. This arm was broke, and he was just hanging, and blood running everywhere, and I couldn't do any. Anyway, another medic came up, took my aid bags, and I kept my M16 sort of rolled down by the creek, and then anyway, I had 2 guys wounded, and I was trying to bandage them up, and all of a sudden the guy behind me opened up, and a North Vietnamese landed on top of me, a little kid. He was 10 feet up in the air in a tree, and I could hear beep, 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 beep. I knew them were bullets, but I didn't want to think about it. I don't know, how can a guy miss a guy 10 feet away and not shoot him? He shoots straight down on me. And he landed on top of me. Boy, that was a shock. Anyway, we got medic back in there, and we couldn't land a helicopter, so they sent down a cable, long cable. Medic was always the last one to get on. I'll need to tell this story before I tell this last one. Anyway, medics were always last to go on because we were always supposed to do this. Anyway, everybody's loaded up, but no room in the helicopter for me. So I handed my M16 to two guys, and I stood on the rail, and they pushed that M16 to my rucksack. One guy held one side, and I just hung out there like that, flying away.
Still bleeding?
No, this is before, not when I was wounded. But anyway, back to my wounded story. Anyway, I got him bandaged up. First guy got up there, nothing. Second guy got up there. Just as I got in there, it sounded like my helicopter was taking, like hitting with a hammer. Bing, bing, bing. And then I looked ahead, one pilot fell over on the levers, so the helicopter was going down. And then grease was running out, then fire was coming. And then I grabbed one guy who looked out, got hit in the forehead. I grabbed his heels, one EMT, and just then the other guys took that, killed a guy, I think he's dead, pilot off the levers, and the remaining pilot brought it up. First he took his .45 and shot the windshield out of his helicopter because the whole helicopter was full of smoke and grease and fire. And it's amazing. That helicopter got up and flew 5 miles. It was shot 140 times. They're tough. But anyway, so spent the next 3 weeks to a month in Vietnam. I don't remember much about the hospital in Vietnam, just bits and pieces. I remember coming in, well, we're going to graft skin or we're going to wire it together. So they wired it, and it was just really tight. And I was running around with IV bottles, and my whole body was with gook sores. One of the jobs at night, I'd have bottles of peroxide, and then I have the guys take and squeeze the pus out of each wound, and then I pour peroxide. Because we never took a shower. And if you went into the water, because they throw bodies in there, and there's more bacteria in the body than there was anywhere else. So you get a bath once a month. So in order to keep, and then I had to check, and then I had different guys that didn't take their boots off. One guy had all his skin came off his feet, and you could see the bones and the membranes and all that stuff. And so at one of the jobs, I had to check all their feet. Then I had some guys, they didn't put fluoride in their water, and they got worms. These worms would come out the tips of their fingers. So I had to check, this is not good, but I had to check their poop. I had other words for it. And they were using somebody else's. And they weren't getting over it. Because there's 2 different medicines. So I had to watch them do it, and then I checked it with a stick. That's what I had 10 weeks of training here now. I'm doing doctor work here, and and tracheotomies. But anyway, the helicopter was hitting the trees, going around and around, boom, boom, boom. And the pilot, he grabbed the lever and pulled it, and it raised up and flew 5 miles. They junked that helicopter. There was nothing left of it. That motor, by the end of 5 miles, is making lots of noise because there's no oil in it. Anyway, we got there, and we were in a big circle, about 25 of us, in a ER type of deal. These nurses with monstrous scissors flat side on bottom. They looked like they cut from here, it cut right through our boots. Anyway, and I was awake, and I said, ladies, would you give me a towel? I was stark naked. There's 25 guys stark naked laying around there. Anyway, so we give me a towel. Anyway, most of the guys they didn't know anything. Anyway, I was operated on, did this. Then next thing I was took to Japan. I was laying in there, tired of sitting around, down to 125 pounds. And anyway, they come around. You want to ride around this city in Japan? They're going to take a bus and you can go around. Anyway, we're going around the city, and this one two-wheeled cart with a kind of a donkey or horse in front of it had a bunch of chickens, and our bus hit this chicken coop and knocked the front windshield out. The bus was instantly full of chickens. Poop everywhere. And we sat in that bus for 2 hours waiting for another bus. That's my experience in Japan. Anyway, they medevaced us back from Japan. Monster plane, there was 450 ambulatory patients, 250 stretcher patients. They were 10 high, and the nurses walked on stilts, and they had lower ones and higher ones and real high ones. And if you hit the guys, they learned to grab a hold of stuff so they didn't fall over. There was 2 windows, two bathrooms, 25 nurses, 10 doctors in that plane for 10 hours. Anyway, we land, we had to walk. Probably, it wasn't that far, but I thought it was miles because I was sick. And we were within 25 feet, a bunch of hippies. And we got a bunch of rotten eggs and tomatoes thrown at us. Called us baby killers. And they told us when they got in there not to wear any uniforms because you'd get spit on or hit. But I never got out of the hospital because I was wounded. Anyway, that's my experience pretty well, what happened. I have some other stories, but that's...
Going back to your faith, how do you think you were protected over in Vietnam?
There's some higher power, because they figured the last day I was wounded, I was shot at it 1,000 times. Because I was shot at a lot up on the hill. And that guy emptied a clip on me, and the helicopter had 140. And reason I know this, my buddy wrote me from Vietnam, telling they junked the helicopter and they found brass all over where I was, everywhere. The guy that shot Crawley was only 10 feet from me. So he was really close. And there's no really, like and I would say, I don't know, maybe 4th is a little high, at least 1/5 of the casualties were friendly fire in my unit. You know what friendly fire is? Shot by their own people. For instance, one of the guys that died, he didn't have his M16 on safety, and he tripped and shot up the back of the guy in front of him. So, yeah, it's a lot of friendly fire deaths.
From your experiences in Vietnam, what is the legacy that you would like to tell future generations about what you experienced and or the war?
One of the experiences, if I had a choice to go tell the generals, when we go to war, let's just knock them out. Let's not play politics. We took this several hills 3 or 4 times. Took casualties every time. Left it, and then they'd take it over. And why are we over there? Just to get each other killed? Do you know over 50,000 GIs died in Vietnam per 100,000? That was the same number of World War II and Korea. I don't know about World War I, and we had helicopters. In Korea and Vietnam, or World War II, they had either walked them off the hill or on the back of a Jeep, But helicopters land in there and take them. You'd be out of the battlefield in minutes, They were dirty fighters. Well, one experience, it wasn't, I wouldn't be alive, but one of the helicopters, not with our company, but they told the story, this mama-san come up to her and was going to, you take my baby, they're going to, anyway, that baby had grenades on it. And they threw it on the helicopter and blew the helicopter up. So after that, anybody come running towards the helicopter, they shot them. And that's why they called, and that first experience I had, that's why they called us baby killers. But if you don't do something, you gonna let them kill yourself? Kill you? What do? Sit there, throw a grenade at me, And they love using, these kids weren't very big, they were 6 years old, The Vietnamese weren't very big, but they're probably 6. They look like they're 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds. They come running towards you with a grenade in each hand, and they were telling me at the deal they were helicopter pilots, that kids would come up, want candy, and they'd lob a grenade into the helicopter, and they'd blow the helicopter up. That's how they fought. There was no, you can't, I'm a medic, you can't shoot me kind of thing, what is they call that, rules of war? Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but there was no rules.
Did anything good come out of your time in Vietnam?
I come out alive. I went and visited in 05, our Maricel Division in Chicago had a Maricel Division deal. Anyway, we went into this big Marriott just like this. It's not the same name, but anyway, my wife and I went in there and I didn't know a soul. Anyway, my wife said, by the way, I have your CO's number in my phone. So we called him, and his name is Captain Collins. And Judy called him. He said, who's this? And he said, Judy Carlson. Is that Doc Carlson's wife? Anyway, they had a whole room, double room, when I was there. And there was 20 of my platoon there. I come up there, this guy, the first time I was in the second room, first day, I didn't even know him. I saved his life, and I medevaced him. He gave me a big squeeze. He said, you saved my life. Anyway, and then I met the lieutenant that gave me the Silver Star, and they lost all my records. Anyway, in the 90s, my Veterans Administration said, you need to go, you need more than 10% disability. So for the next 10 years, I eventually got up to 100%, got counseling, got my head straightened out. One of the things I remember about my counseling, I asked my counselor, her name was Nancy, said, why is there so many crazies from Vietnam? Well, when they come home from World War II, they got got parades, and you're the best guy and everything. You come home from Korea, they're a lot like Vietnam, but they spent 30 days on a ship talking to counselors. When you're in Vietnam, they come out 10 hours later and you're in San Francisco, and when you take the weapon away, now you don't kill anybody when you get home. That's the end of their counseling. It wasn't till the 90s they started seeing the plight of the Vietnam veterans. I think that's maybe one good thing, that I didn't ask to go over there. It was a political war. I didn't ask. It was just I killed this one guy. That's the only guy I killed. That was enough. But we all didn't go over there to kill babies. We all went over there like the pilots from the helicopter. Went over there to come back alive. That's our goal. I got dry mouth.
Well, I appreciate and I honor you for your service.
There's more stories, but
this is.
You want more? Really?
This is what you want to do.
I don't know. It's just I thought I had to keep it down.
No, it's.
Anyway.
If you want to stop.
Anyway, as a medic, I tell you the responsibility I had. In the morning, I had to make sure they took their salt tablets. And at night, I had to check for gangrene and take their pants off and take their shoe. I made them take their shoes off. Some guys wouldn't take their boots off. You're walking through rice paddies all day, and they fertilize that with human dung. And if you don't take your boots off and wear separate socks, you're going to get terrible foot diseases. You never tried to walk on foot rot or gangrene. I had one guy almost lost his toes because that guy that didn't take his boots off, and he was a 33-year-old guy, thought he was really brave, and I learned my lesson. So then I had that then. And then they had the guys got worms, so I had to make sure they took the pills every morning. And then we didn't have enough men, so I had 2-hour radio watch every night. And my time was 2 to 4. And everybody else is bunking down at night, come marching. I get up early in the morning, start doing it, and then at night spend 2 hours, and then do radio watch. I average 3 to 4 hours sleep every night. Everybody said, "Didn't you have trouble sleeping?" No, I was so exhausted I died. Now, talking about that story, I was busy taking care of guys just that night, and my radio guy, came over and said, "The radio watch, your CEO, the command is right over there behind that rock." I looked. I usually always went over and checked it, but anyway, that night I didn't. Anyway, the guy woke me up at 2 o'clock. I was just like, I was so tired. You ever been so tired you felt drugged? And I was disoriented. Anyway, I started off, and somebody hollered, "Who's there?" I was outside the perimeter, and the guy had his finger on claymores. You know what claymores are? I said, "Doc, doc, 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 doc. What you doing out there?" I just said, I'm half asleep. So after that, I went and checked, marked it off, seen what it looked like in the daylight, then try to figure it out in the dark. You learn lessons like that. So, and I, 2 times I called home, and I called, you radioed, and you couldn't tell where you were, And I called the first time at 2 o'clock in the morning back home here, because I couldn't pick the hours. And then folks woke up, and I could hear Mom screaming in the background, "Dad, I'm alive. I just got a chance to stand down to call you and talk." So the next time wasn't so bad for him, but and then it was tough on my folks was when I was wounded. I'm right-handed. I couldn't write. This arm was broke, shot. So I had another guy write me a letter. He was shot in the left arm, so he wrote me my folks a letter, and it wasn't in my handwriting. And anyway, that's one of my family's hardships on that.
How was your reunion home?
Oh, when you landed in San Francisco, you tell them where you're from, and the closest place was Denver, Fitzsimmons. So my folks, this is way back in 1492, when air conditioning was a luxury. Now it has to be. But anyway, my uncle had a car with remember the air conditioner down under the console, and Mom sat in the middle, and there were 7 people in a 6-passenger car, and then they picked up my wife-to-be at Okalala on Interstate 80. So there's 8 people in this car, and they were going out middle of the summer, and anyway, they come, and it was great. And I think when I got back, I was ready to give up on life. My goal was at that time, stay at the farm and never go see another human being. Let Dad do all the business, I'll just work. I don't want to go to town, I don't want to do anything with anything. Anyway, my wife, I called her. She lived 300 and some miles away from me. She was in school, that's where we met in Omaha. And anyway, she was back home in Okalala, and she called me and said, "Dick, I want to see you." I said, "I can't drive. I can't even, my car had no power steering. I couldn't steer it. I was so weak." And she said, "Well, I really want you to come." So it took me 10 hours to go 300 miles. Drive a while, rest a while. Anyway, we talked for 4 days straight, and she wrote me letters, only had 4 or 5 dates with her. Into that 4 days, I asked her to marry me. And you ever seen deer in the light? The glaze that came over, and she was speechless in this way. Then I said, "Well," and she said, "Well, I'll think about it." Anyway, the next night, she gave me a big kiss. So I figured that was okie dokie, right? Anyway, so I went home and I got money and went back home and got a ring for her. But I told her I gotta wait a year. I can't take my boots off at night. Mom's scared. See, when we're farmers, Mom and Dad were still on the farm, and I was just upstairs, still like I was in high school. And then when I got married, they moved to town, and I stayed in the farmhouse. That's how it works in our family. But anyway, so she talked to me, and I really, after her death, the 17th of December, she was my crutch. She died suddenly. That's a story in itself. The week before she died, my daughter had her birthday, and we drove 500 miles, and my brother's birthday, and my special needs daughter, and by the way, she has Williams syndrome, and think that's from Agent Orange. Anyway, we had a Williams syndrome seminar down in Omaha, And over 3/4 of the Williams-centered kids had grandpas or dads in Vietnam. But I haven't, they say you should try again now, but I haven't. But anyway, she's special needs, like Williams syndrome. And anyway, she not able to live by herself in Region 5 at Wahoo. But anyway, she talked and we talked and we did a lot of talking, and that was a long year not to get married. But I wanted to make sure if she's willing to wait for a year, then maybe we were married 52 and a half years. So, and my problem to being a workaholic, and another thing how I worked through it, I'd run 2 miles a day, and then if I didn't have anything else to do, I'd run 10 miles. And we were dairy. I'd get up at 3 o'clock and run 2 miles, and then work all day, and then get up 3 o'clock in the morning and run 2 miles. Then when we went off the farm, I did the same thing. I had to be at work at 5, so I'd get up at 3 and run my 2 miles. Then if I didn't have to do something that weekend, I'd run 10 miles. That's how I worked through my frustrations. And that's from being in basic training, learning that I had to run. I could run. I wasn't a sprinter, but I was a cross country. I could run, even in the later years, I'd run a 7-minute mile. But when I was young, I could run a 5-minute mile. But I wasn't fast but what I did is always try to find somebody. I was in running clubs that was a little bit faster than me and try to keep up with them. That's how I worked through one of my things to work through. And then talking about it.
Well, I thank you for your story. I appreciate your service.
I hope it helps somebody.
Yes, it opened my eyes.
Did it even?
So, thank you for your service.